The only name they threw dirt on was theirs. And if this is for you, I'm going to show you how it was always rigged in your favor and how what was written could never be stopped. We're going to use 18 cards from the Tarot of the Abyss. This is not going to be for everybody. But I want to tell you that it all started with a crash and burn because the ego was at the wheel. And peace first appeared as chaos the moment you chose differently. But I want to tell you that the choice was the illusion because it had already been written. And if this is for you, this is for you. 2011 to 2012 was a catalyst. I want to tell you that a new foundation was laid, even if you didn't realize it. Looking back, you will put all of this together. And I want to tell you that this became the hill that you were willing to die on. And what started as a mission to prove them wrong became purpose, because it was the journey to awareness of how God moves through you. And I want to tell you that while others took pride in attempting to destroy you, all they did was give you fuel to rebuild. And I just keep hearing it became the catalyst for the perfect storm. We have the Devil in reverse. We have the High Priestess. We have the Ace of Wands. The only name that they were throwing dirt on was theirs. Because your only mission wasn't to prove them wrong. It was to live out your knowing. Because your knowing was already written. And where they took pride in attempting to destroy you, you took that as fuel to rebuild. You have the Four of Wands, the Tower, the Three of Pentacles. I want you to see the three hands because three is going to come into play here. There are only three mirrors. It is that of the mother, that of the father, and that of the child. Within each mirror, there are many illusions to face. There are many distortions. So if this is for you, I want to tell you that you inadvertently got moved into your house of mirrors around 2011 and 2012, whether you were conscious of it or not. I want to tell you from that time period till about 2022, 2023, it was almost your victim journey. It was all of these things being brought to the surface. And between that time period, you had to face two mirrors, that of the mother and that of the father. That of the lens that you were never meant to view through. The ego crashed and burned. Because to crash and burn is to be purified through the fire. In your Tower and your Three of Wands, or your Four of Wands, your Tower, your Three of Pentacles leads to your Four of Pentacles. It leads to a foundation that can never be shaken. It is the hill that you die on. But it was only through isolation, and I'm not talking about the typical hermit isolation. I am talking about the kind of isolation that brings you to your knees. The kind that you have nothing left but to, and I don't mean believe, but to know that there is something greater out there guiding you. I want to tell you that it was during this isolation that your compass returned to its original settings. This is where loss was overwritten by love. This was your awakening. But your awakening came from the crumbling of the foundation. It came from recognizing the mirrors of the mother and the father and all of the distorted illusions that you had carried your whole life. The things you thought you had to prove you weren't. But it was in the death, the crash and burn of the ego that your knowing came online. This is when your mission to prove became your knowing and your purpose being lived. the Magician, and you've got the Empress in reverse. This was the role reversal. This was the point in your story that was already written, where you moved out of victim consciousness and into the hero's journey. You faced two mirrors that manifested multiple ways, multiple people, multiple relationships. This is where loss was overridden by love. And I want to tell you that you are recognizing now that the path to peace first appeared as chaos because echoes were fighting as they made their way out. And you're recognizing now that you never had to prove it. You just had to live your knowing. And I want to tell you now, 2025, it's your final mirror. Because there's only three: the mother, the father, and the child. And to return, to come home, to face the final mirror, is to recognize that you are living through the eyes of the child. It is limitless potential. There is no separation because the child was born without ego. The ego was conditioned. And who was it conditioned by? There are only three mirrors. And if this is for you, that is your timeline. 2011 to 2012-ish, 22, 23, and now. And you are living in the knowing that you chose to let live through you. You stopped proving. They tried to prove you wrong, and all they ended up doing was proving you right, because you stopped letting ego take the wheel, because you entered your house of mirrors, because you recognized all of the loops came back to the same thing. And to come home, to return to what was, you were never born with your ego. It was conditioned into you during the first 7 years of your life, which correlates to your 7 chakras, which correlates to the illusions, which correlates to the initiations, which correlates to the 64 shadows, which are also the gifts, which lead you to your city state. You are living in what was already written. It was meant for you to discover that you were the dreamer, living in the dream. But when the ego was at the wheel, it looked more like you were living a nightmare. There's only 3 mirrors. And the final mirror was to return to what always was. The wise one, that's your knowing being lived. Your masculine and your feminine energy coming into balance. Your 3 of Wands, the power of 3. It's also your trilogy. It is where past, present, and future merge because they were never separate. They were all living through you. But while the ego was at the wheel, you failed to see it because the distortion and the illusion was separation. Through the eyes of the child is the flip. It is moving from the head to the heart. It is returning to consciousness. It is returning to what is, what always has been, and what always will be. Death in reverse. There are many cycles of death and rebirth. This is your final mirror. The Fool. Where it starts and where it ends. Where you were once a victim, you are now the hero. To know one is to know the other. Love you guys.